Makes my run sweeter the next day. When I have a recovery day, the next day when I get up to go for a run, it's amazing. I can tell.
Yeah. That's that part of it is knowing yourself, ladies and gentlemen, is knowing that, hey, I need recovery. So those of you out there that have a coach, and sometimes coaches will give you 7 days of workouts. For a lot of my clients, I do. I give them 7 days of workouts. Now, they're different intensity levels, and I give them what we call active recovery. But I also tell them, you know what, if you wake up on a day and you're just not feeling it, then take the day off. Just go ahead and take it off. Write in the notes saying, you know what, I'm taking the day off. I need it.
Yeah.
I'm good with that, right? So but those of you that have coaches that give 7 days, and sometimes they're adamant about you doing all workouts all 7 days, you're paying them, tell them how you're feeling, and tell them that, hey, you know what, I need 1 day off.
Yeah. And
tell them. Okay, and that's let me get off my soapbox.
Yeah,
there.
and if I can add to that too, on days when you're not feeling it, and we all have it,
right?
I still try, and I'll put it in my notes. Hey, listen, you had me out for a long run. I didn't run all those miles. I walked some of them, but at least I did it.
Yep.
I still got the mileage in.
Well, okay, and there's that's the difference between the psychological and the physical.
Yeah.
And I talk more about the physical. As you get up and you're super sore and your body is just kind of telling you, I don't want to do it. Then there's the psychological side of it where you're just like, I don't really feel like doing it, blah, blah, blah. You've got to pick and choose your battles. And, if your body is just feels sore, there's those days you just need to take your days off. But there's a psychologist side of it where you're just, be sick, lame, and lazy type of thing. And you're just like, you know what? I don't really feel like doing it, but I'm going out and doing it. And 9 times out of 10, after the first 10 minutes of you getting going, you're going to feel much better about it. The next subject is you just recently started on the keto diet.
Yes.
So tell us more about what it is and then what's it done for you.
So I've been on the keto plan and I hate to call it a diet. I like to call it a plan. Because when I say diet, people look at me and go, what? So it's really an eating plan. And for me, the reason why I decided to do it is I've been doing a little bit of research and noticed that a lot of endurance athletes are following the keto plan. And there's a couple reasons why, but I'll tell you what it is it's a plan where it's high protein and high fat and minimal carbs. So for me, my calorie intake, about 10% of my calories comes from carbs, which is completely the opposite of what I was accustomed to as an endurance athlete. As you know, we carb up. It's, pasta this and a lot of carbs and rice. And so to walk away from that was really quite shocking. But I found that I felt better. I had more energy to get me to the finish line, to finish my training runs. But I also liked the way that I looked physically. I found that when I carb up, I would hold water, and I didn't like the way I looked. But when I went into the keto plan, that it's a little bit more lean, and it also helps me get my calories in, because I know there were times when you and I would have conversations, and I would say, Brad, I had a difficult run, and you would look at my calorie intake and say, well, of course you did, because you're not getting enough calories in to get you the miles that you need to put in. So keto is a great way to get those calories in, because it's high calorie meals most of the time. Most of the time in the mornings, I'll consume 500 to 600 calories before I go out for a 10-mile run.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And keto comes from the ketosis, which is where your body starts burning fat instead of sugar for energy. And burning fat actually is longer and burns longer and hotter. The problem with ketosis is getting it started. So the interesting thing is when we're working with Heather's her nutrition, when she goes on keto, and I had no issue with it, I says, but before last dopey, I says, let's try this, and we're going to come off of keto the day before, and let's see what happens. And what happened?
Well, I PR'd on my 10K.
Huge, like 8-9 minutes.
Yeah.
So that was what basically what happened was. So she was on keto. She was burning fat. She was looking great, and we put her back onto carbs. So now her body that was kind of starved, I wouldn't say starving for carbs, but it wasn't used to it. And when it was back to it, now she's got 2 sources of energy, and it tended to work out pretty well. Yeah. Actually, the whole weekend, you freaking killed it. So she went 48.9 miles over 4 days, and each race was great, even though we were pretty much taking it easy, because it was it's the dopey, ladies and gentlemen. It's in Walt Disney World, and I tell her this all the time, and I tell everybody else. I'm like, don't do Disney to PR. You do Disney to take pictures and have some fun and do some great stuff. And she did that, and she also had some great races too. So it was a great for both worlds. She's a pure epitome of incinerating limits. So she started out with a half marathon, and then she did duathlon without knowing how to ride a bike. Then she went to a marathon, went from marathon to a 50-miler. How was that experience?
50-miler was a unique experience. I was ready for it, and I was ready to take on the challenge, and everyone talked about, you're going to hit this wall, and I kept saying to myself, I'm not going to hit a wall. That's silly. Newsflash, it happens, and I'm very grateful that Brad was out there to support me during my first 50-miler, and that wall hit about mile 35. And you were there for my meltdown.
Yeah.
We all have meltdowns, and my meltdown was simply because I didn't want to be a Garmin watcher. I didn't want to watch the miles. I just wanted to run the miles, and in my mind, I thought I was at mile 40 when I was at mile 35. And I just looked at you, Brad, and I was like, I'm only at mile 35, and in my mind, I thought it was at 40, and like, you got this. You've got this. But it's a journey, and at that point when you start getting into endurance miles, it's really mental. Your mind is it's where it's at, because your body just kind of goes into autopilot, and I'm a firm believer that you can do anything that you set your mind to, and the body will follow. And with a good strong training plan like you gave me, it happened. So I wasn't necessarily worried. I wasn't worried about if I was going to cross the finish line. It was a matter of when.
Yeah, that was a psychological wall.
Yeah,
and it's not. She's right. You're find times, and especially first marathoners. Usually it's about mile 18, but it really is. It's the body. The body starts to come down. It's not that they can't finish; they will, and it's a little bit slower, and then maybe they got to walk a little bit. But there is a physical wall there. It's for first-time marathoners. As you tend to get more experience, it gets better. But when you get to ultra marathons, especially the first ones, I've heard a lot of stories where it's not. There's a psychological wall, yes, but there's also a epiphany that a lot of them hit, and I think you started to feel that about mile 35. And I've heard people talking about hundreds of miles where they literally start bawling.
Yes,
there's an emotional release.
Well, I cried at the finish line.
Yeah.
I mean, I bawled at the finish line, and it just happens. It is an emotional release, and I think that's going to probably be what's going to happen every time that I do an endurance. Is I'm probably going to bawl my eyes out at every finish line, because it's just, you work so hard for it. And again, because I run with passion and purpose, I have in the back of my mind at all times, I've got my running angel. It's my mama, and so she's always with me. So I dedicate those miles to her. So it's emotional that way too.
And there's that why again, ladies and gentlemen. So what's your next race?
I finished my 50-miler, and after I bawled my eyes out and looked at you, Brad, and said, I'm done. I just don't think I can do this.
And then at breakfast next morning.
Yep, breakfast next morning, I looked at him and said, guess what? I want to do a 100-miler.
Oh. Yeah, I was. And of course, I said the exact same thing I did after her marathon. I'm like, just give it a couple of days. And yeah, she didn't let up. She knew that was what it was. And again, it wasn't if she was going to do it, it was when. And then it was all about scheduling and everything else. But in the meantime, you've also been given another honor, and that goes to the old adage where the student becomes the teacher.
Yes. So I am very honored to say that I am a coach for team and training for the Leukemia Lymphoma Society. And yes, I'm so excited. Yeah. There is no better feeling. I totally get where you come from with your sense of joy. To see, I call them my little chickens. I'm like the mama bear, and when they cross the finish line, the joy is just so intense. And I think I smile and celebrate more than the person crossing the finish line. It's an amazing sense of accomplishment for my team.
Yeah, and and you're absolutely right. When I first started coaching, I would always say that watching my clients was a very, very close second to me crossing the finish line at an Ironman. And as I've grown more as a coach, actually, I'd rather watch my clients cross the finish line before me many times over. Now, crossing the Ironman finish is a close second to watching my clients cross the finish line. So, so welcome into the coaching fold.
Thank you.
And I think you're going to be great. Just using your passion and your personality, I think you're going to be. I think you're going to be completely successful. So, and I think that's it's awesome. So we're going to walk into the lightning round, ladies and gentlemen. That was the long answer version. We are going to walk into a quick lightning round. So tell us about your quick favorite keto recipe.
It would be my keto pancakes. I make them every single morning anytime I know that I'm going to run more than 10 miles, and I know it's exactly 500. I think it's 573 calories. Super yummy and satisfies me to get me through my long endurance runs.
Excellent. And I will get that recipe from you, and I will post that in the show notes at www.innerfireendurance.com. And the next is your favorite running apparel.
Brand-wise, I don't have a favorite brand, but I like anything that's pink, girly, sparkly, wild, bright. It makes it easy for people to see me. That's what I'm all about. So I'm the crazy one out there.
Yep, she has more pink and purple than I can possibly imagine. It's sparkling, and I never have a problem finding Heather on the course. So that's always that's definitely a plus. So we have your favorite endurance analog tool. So obviously we have our digital stuff and our analog stuff. That an analog might be a foam roller or something like that, something physical.
Yes, of course. My running shoes. I love my Ultra running shoes. You introduced me to the brand, and my feet are so happy, and as a runner, I can tell you I have all 10 toenails.
Yep, and she's a princess, so she likes to have her pedicure.
Yeah.
And it's nice because Ultra they have a wide toe box. They're zero drop. I love them. I'm a proponent for them, and I'll put a link to their site in the show notes as well. Your favorite endurance online tool
would be MyFitnessPal.
Yep.
And the reason why I like that is because it links up to Garmin, so it shows my calories that I've burned for my endurance runs, and it helps me keep track of my calories in, calories out, so I know that I am eating enough to get me through my long run.
Awesome. And your favorite race?
My favorite race is Las Vegas Strip at Night, the Rock and Roll Marathon. So much fun. I'm doing it again this year and cannot wait.
Awesome. So she said Las Vegas run the strip at night. So, it's not stripping at night, ladies and gentlemen. It's run the strip, meaning the Las Vegas Strip.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, again, thank you. So is there anything you want to just tell the audience? Any parting words of wisdom?
Sure. In regards to running, everyone always says, you're crazy, especially when you tell someone that you're an endurance athlete and you're looking to tackle 100 miles. They say, you're crazy. And yes, you are crazy, but you can do it. And I truly believe that if you set your mind to anything, that you can accomplish it. And I say, come to our sport. Dip your toes in the water of running. And I would love to have a running partner. I'd love to have someone run miles with me. You don't have to run 100 miles, and you don't have to be fast. You just have to have a passion and a purpose.
Love it. And any shout outs?
Yes, of course. A couple of shout outs, first of all, to you for your constant coaching and encouragement, and to getting me to the finish line. To my charming husband, who's always there to support me. People ask me all the time, does he run? No, he does not.
Sherpa extraordinaire.
Exactly, but he is my biggest fan and my biggest cheerleader, and always there for me. And also to my running team, to Team in Training. They are my family. And I encourage anybody to get in a running group, because they will support you and they will give you the encouragement that you need. And they're my family. Team in Training is family for me, and it helps me get through the run.
Yeah, and ladies and gentlemen, that's if you do find it hard to kind of get out on your own, and endurance training sometimes can be lonely, but it doesn't have to be. There's plenty of running groups out there. It doesn't necessarily have to be LLS or Team in Training. Of course, Team in Training has some great things going on and a great purpose behind it. So it's not a bad choice. But there's plenty of running groups out there that aren't associated with charities, and there are also ones that are affiliated with charities. So it's another way for you to give back to the community. But and before we go, and before I ask for your contact info, you do have an event coming up for LLS, and for those of you listening locally here in Tampa, why don't you go ahead and tell us about that, and